Picture a night on the coast of the ancient continent. The sea is calm, the stars prickle the black, and then the water begins to blush. A crimson glow spreads across the waves as if the horizon itself has caught fire. Elders tell of such nights when cosmic flames touched the ocean and it seemed like the world was ending. These aren't mere campfire tales. They're living memories of the first Australians, passed down through generations. In this yarn, you'll discover why the sea turned red, what the people did, and what scientists now think really happened. If hidden histories and cosmic mysteries tickle your curiosity, smash that like button, share this with a mate and stick around, because by the end, you may never look at the ocean or the night sky the same way again. Across the Australian continent, people have gazed at the heavens and the sea for tens of thousands of years. Their stories weave lore, ethics, and observation into one fabric. In those dreamtime narratives, the sun is often a woman carrying fire across the sky, the moon a man chasing her, and the stars the footprints of ancestors. Occasionally, something extraordinary happens. The sky pulses with blood-red light, the aurora australis flickers over the southern horizon, and the glow reflects off the water like embers on a dark beach. The Gunditjmara of Western Victoria called these lights puai-buai, ashes, while the Gunai in Gippsland saw them as bushfires burning in the world of spirits. Out on the plains of Queensland, elders spoke of Ula Pika, ghostly beings whose feast fires painted the sky a sinister red. These events, rare but unforgettable, became cautionary legends. As modern astronomers like Dwayne Hamaker and Ray Norris have learned, those legends often encode real, natural phenomena, auroras, meteor showers, perhaps even tsunamis. This script will explore how ancient Australians understood the ocean glowing red, why they linked it to cosmic law, and what recent research reveals about the science behind the stories. Along the way, you'll hear of hunters who broke taboo, deities who hurled fire from the heavens, falling stars that carved craters, and a cradle that fell from the Milky Way. All of these tales share a common thread: respect for nature and the consequences when that respect is lost. Imagine a group of fishers on the southern coast, many generations ago, finishing a long day's work. As they pack up their nets, someone points to the horizon. A shimmering red band begins to rise from the sea, threads of pink and orange dancing up into the black. The men fall silent. An old woman whispers the word the Gunditjmara use, puai-buai, and everyone knows what she means. These are ashes from the spirit world. In Western Victoria, that was exactly how the aurora australis was described, as the campfires of the dead. Farther east, the Gunai in Gippsland saw the same red glow and called it a bushfire in another realm. The color wasn't a gentle sunset crimson. It was the deep, bloody red that in many Aboriginal languages signals danger and death. One 19th century account from the Dieri people of South Australia reports that when an aurora appeared, they said it was an evil spirit, a kuchi, creating a huge fire and planning to send a punitive party against someone who'd broken sacred law. In 1909, a massive solar storm lit up the skies across the globe. On the Channel Country near Windora, older men told an anthropologist that the red ribbons of light were feast fires of the Ula Pika. Only initiated elders were allowed to watch these ghostly flames. Women and the young were told to look away lest they be harmed by the poisonous light. It's not hard to see why they would be fearful. The aurora's shimmering curtains of color can look like flames licking at the edge of the earth, and when those flames reflect on water, the whole sea seems to smolder. A modern aurora chaser will tell you that the red hue comes from oxygen atoms high in the atmosphere releasing photons. But to a community without telescopes, it made sense to link it to fire and blood. In many of these stories, the aurora arrives unexpectedly, causing a hush to fall and everyone to remember the old laws. Yet some elders recalled that on certain nights the red glow was more than a light show. It was a warning of what might follow if people broke taboos, leading to the story of Mungan's fire and the great wave that came after it. In the country of the Gunai-Kurnai people, there is a lawgiver named Mungan. As one story goes, Mungan taught the first men the secrets of initiation and placed his son, Tundun, in charge of the ceremonies. Those secrets were for men's ears only. One year, someone whispered them to women, a grave breach of protocol. Mungan, furious, cast a great fire down from the sky. The people looked up and saw the aurora sweeping from horizon to horizon, a vivid red curtain that filled them with dread. They begged it to go away, swinging dried hands called Bretta's charms to ward off danger, but the punishment didn't end with light. In some versions of the story, soon after the lights appeared, a wall of water rushed in from the ocean. It drowned almost everyone. Those who survived became the Mukkurnai, the superior animals, while Tundun and his wife took refuge in the sea and became porpoises. For generations, elders used this tale to reinforce the importance of keeping cultural secrets. If you defy the law, the sky might burn and the sea might rise. Modern researchers have pointed out that the Bass Strait region has evidence of ancient tsunamis. Around 6,000 years ago, as sea levels stabilized, large waves may have struck the southern coast. To a community living by the water, such an event would be unforgettable. Encoding it as divine retribution helps ensure that people remember the lesson. A linguist who worked with Gunai elders noted that when the aurora appeared during an initiation ceremony in the early 20th century, the men shouted, "Don't let it burn us up," and exchanged wives temporarily to avert the anger of Mungan. The idea of a cosmic fire followed by a flood echoes flood myths around the world. But here it's anchored in a specific place and cultural lore. And when the lights return, elders still remind youngsters of Mungan's wrath. The red sky over the sea becomes a moral mirror. Keep the law and all is well. Break it and the very ocean might glow red and rise up. West of Uluru, the Pitjantjatjara people tell a shorter but equally potent story. A group of hunters went out one day and killed a large emu, Kalaya. There was nothing unusual about hunting, except that this bird was sacred. They lit a fire, cooked the meat and shared it. After they'd eaten, one of the hunters looked south. Smoke seemed to rise from the horizon, but it wasn't ordinary smoke. It shimmered and glowed. The men recognized it as Jura, a glowing light visible at night, what we now call the Southern Lights. In this story, the Jura are poisonous flames sent as punishment for breaking taboo. The hunters panicked, realizing their mistake. They threw the bones away and begged forgiveness. Elders have told anthropologists that in this context, the aurora served as a warning. Take only what you're allowed, honor the law, and the world will remain in balance. It's a pattern that repeats across the continent. In far south Queensland, groups like the Yaluyandi and Karuwali interpreted the aurora as fires of the Ula Pika. Women and uninitiated men weren't allowed to look. Only elders could read their messages. In South Australia, the Dieri saw an aurora and announced that a punitive party was on its way. These stories aren't random superstition. In an environment where overhunting, cheating on trade or disrespecting ceremony could lead to starvation or conflict, linking misbehavior to cosmic signs was a clever way to enforce social cohesion. And of course, the Southern Lights themselves are real. They're most common during periods of high solar activity. A red aurora reflecting off a shallow inland lake or a calm sea would indeed appear as though the water itself were glowing, a sight that would sear itself into memory. By recounting how hunters felt when they saw the Chura, the storytellers invite listeners to imagine their own guilt and fear. reinforcing the taboo without ever pointing a finger. While the aurora stories tie light to behavior, some legends describe the sky literally throwing rocks at the earth. North of Alice Springs lies the Henbury Meteorite Conservation Reserve, a field of craters formed by fragments of an iron meteoroid that exploded about 4,700 years ago. Long before European scientists identified it, Aboriginal people avoided the site. An oral tradition recorded by an explorer tells that those craters were made when a fire devil came down from the sky. People were warned never to drink the rainwater that collects in the pits, or the fire devil would fill them with iron. To modern ears, that sounds like a quaint superstition. Yet geologists note that meteoritic iron can leach into water. The tradition preserved a real hazard. In other parts of the north, stories speak of Nyimibili, a bright star with a single fiery eye, falling to earth and burning the grass and trees. Near Caledon Bay, the Yolngu tell of Gorda, a fire spirit who fell as a star to bring fire to the people. One vivid account from central Queensland, recorded nearly a century ago, describes the sky billowing and heaving, stars clattering, the Milky Way splitting. A large red glowing mass burst in the air with a deafening roar and scattered millions of molten pieces. By morning, the ground was covered in burned holes. Whether this records a meteor airburst or a poetic retelling of a meteor shower isn't certain, but it emphasizes that people experienced incandescent fragments raining down. Imagine, then, if such an event occurred over water. Hot, glowing iron striking a lagoon would hiss and steam. For someone watching from shore, the whole scene would appear to set the sea alight. To ensure the community remembered not to linger or drink near such sites, elders framed the story around a supernatural being. As modern researchers seek new meteorites, they sometimes follow these old narratives. The lesson here is that myths are not only moral lessons. They can be eyewitness accounts of cosmic impacts, encoded in metaphor and brought to life around a campfire. Further west, near the center of the continent, stands a ring of hills called Norala or Goss's Bluff. It rises abruptly from the desert plain, like an amphitheater turned inside out. For the Western Arrernte people, this isn't just a geological curiosity, it is the site of a profound story. Long ago, women in the sky were dancing in the Milky Way. One had a baby, and she placed him in a wooden cradle, a turner, so she could join the dance. While she moved, the turner slipped and fell through the darkness. It struck the earth, driving rocks upward and leaving a circular wall of stone. The baby was lost. His parents, the morning star and the evening star, search for him still. Elders warned children not to look at those bright stars in the twilight because the grieving parents might mistake them for the child. In some versions, the eerie Min Min lights seen in outback Queensland are the parents looking for their baby. Scientists know that Goss's Bluff is the remnant of a comet or asteroid that struck over 100 million years ago, long before people were in Australia. Yet the story's power isn't diminished by that timeline. It transforms an otherwise abstract landform into a living place with meaning and responsibility. When travelers pass by, they show respect, lower their voices, and remember the tragedy. The image of a cradle falling from the Milky Way echoes another motif in Aboriginal stories, that of meteors bringing important gifts or beings to Earth. In the Warlpiri tradition, celestial men fell to Earth as falling stars, bringing the dreaming to the people. In the Western Arrernte version, the first human couple were stones thrown down by a spirit. Together, these stories tie people, land and sky together so tightly that no one thread can be removed. And again, the notion of something fiery falling and causing a crater aligns with scientific understanding of impacts. Even if no one witnessed the Tinarala impact itself, describing it as a falling turner helps listeners visualize the force of a meteor. It also hints at the heartbreaking feeling of watching something precious plunge into a vast unknown, a feeling anyone who has lost a loved one can relate to. As you hear these tales, you might wonder how long a memory can last. Anthropologists suggest that some Aboriginal oral traditions may be 10,000 years old. Stories about sea level rise along the Queensland coast match geological evidence from the end of the last ice age. Accounts of volcanic eruptions in Western Victoria align with the dates of those eruptions. The Henbury crater story has been handed down for at least 4,000 years. Even if details shift, core elements remain. When Dr. Dwayne Hamaker and his colleagues compiled accounts of auroras across Aboriginal cultures, they found consistent themes: red light equals fire, unexpected lights evoke fear and a need for ceremony. Auroras are warnings from the spirit world. They also noticed hints that some groups understood the cycles of celestial phenomena. There are anecdotes of elders predicting an eclipse or telling a young anthropologist to prepare for a night when the sky would glow. Science now explains auroras as charged solar particles colliding with atoms in the upper atmosphere and meteors as bits of rock and metal burning through the air. It can even model the waves triggered by asteroid impacts. But science alone doesn't instill ethics. Traditional stories do. They teach children not to kill what they shouldn't, not to leak ceremonial knowledge, not to take more than they need. They warn that the sky and the sea respond to human actions. In a world facing climate change, overfishing and pollution, those messages feel more relevant than ever. There's also a sense of wonder that modern Australians are rediscovering. People travel to Tasmania or the southern mainland to watch the aurora, snapping photos of pink and green bands over the ocean. They marvel when bioluminescent plankton makes waves glow blue. These experiences echo the awe and dread in the ancient stories. When we listen to Indigenous elders and learn about their lore, we're not just indulging in myth, we're glimpsing a time capsule of observation, survival and moral insight. The ocean glowing red becomes both a scientific phenomenon and a metaphor for the fragility of our world. We began with the eerie image of a crimson sea and discovered that behind it lie rich narratives about auroras, meteors, tsunamis, and fallen cradles. Each story carries lore, respect for sacred animals, secrecy of ceremony, reverence for landforms, and each encodes real natural events. The first Australians didn't separate science and spirituality. They saw the universe as one integrated system. When a red light flickered on the horizon, they didn't shrug it off. They listened, they sang, they corrected their behavior. Modern researchers now validate that many of these tales correspond to auroral displays, meteor impacts, and sea level changes. But perhaps more importantly, the stories remind us that our actions have consequences. Overfishing, breaking promises, ignoring warnings, these aren't just personal failings. They disrupt the web of relationships among people, land and sky. Next time you see the sun setting blood red or hear about a meteor streaking across the sky, think of Mungan's fire or the hunters of Tura. Think of the women dancing in the Milky Way and the cradle that slipped. These aren't dusty curiosities. They're living guidance on how to walk softly on this earth. Respect the stories, and they'll respect you, like a calm sea after a storm. If this tale of glowing seas and cosmic lore stirred something in you, do us a favor and give the video a thumbs up. Sharing it with your mates helps more people hear these extraordinary yarns. Drop a comment below. Have you ever seen the Southern Lights or a shooting star? Maybe you've heard a local legend about the sea changing color. Every comment adds to the conversation. And if you're new here, hit subscribe and ding the bell so you don't miss our next exploration of ancient wisdom and modern science. Your support keeps these stories alive and helps honor the communities who have kept them for thousands of years. Thanks for staying with us till the end. And remember, whenever you feel small under the night sky, know that you're part of a story that stretches from the dream time to today.